Hello, everybody. So this is class number 5, and this time we are doing a short story. The title is A Family Man, and the author is Pritchard. So last time we have done the soliloquy of Macbeth. So that was part of a play, drama. This time we're talking about short story, القصة القصيرة. So what is the genre of the short story? Now, please, this is a new word that we need to learn. The genre. The genre means الجنس الأدبي, النوع الأدبي. So we have plays, we have novels, we have poems, and we have short stories. So the genre of the short story is what we are doing today. The short story is considered to be a modern literary form, and it appeared in the 19th century. As a response to the flourishing publishing industry in Europe, ازدهار صناعة النشر. Okay, what do we mean by this? The rise of books, magazines, newspapers. So because of this, the short story appeared. Actually, there were two important factors behind the popularity and growth of the short story. And it continued into the 20th century. The first factor is that, of course, by definition, بالتعريف, short means ranging between 3 pages and 20 pages, which means it could be published in a newspaper or a magazine. So it's not as long as a novel. So it could be published along with poetry. Poetry, of course, was considered to be the main literary form, الشكل الأدبي الرئيسي. Okay. So the length of this genre helped to provide it with popularity. The second reason has to do with the fact that the short story, when it was written, it dealt with the concerns of the middle class, or rather, to be accurate, the rising middle classes, طبقات المتوسطة الصاعدة. And the readers of the middle class liked the short story, because it appealed to their tastes. What do we mean by the middle class? Those were originally the small businessmen. And small businessmen had little time to spend in reading. So it's better to read a short story. It's better than reading a novel. And of course, we know that the rhythm, the pace of life accelerated, became very fast in the cities, in the big cities. So the business of writing short pieces, short stories, also accelerated. So short stories catered for the rhythm of big cities. It's all about time. You want to read, but you don't want to spend a long time reading. So all these factors helped the short story, the genre of the short story, to grow and flourish. Over the years, of course, the short story became an independent genre and began to compete with the novel. تنافس الرواية. Yet it was Edgar Allan Poe who introduced the definition of this genre. Now, according to Poe, the short story is a prose work of fiction. Prose, of course, the opposite of verse. It's not poetry, it's prose, but it's a work of fiction that concentrates on a unique or a single effect. So the short story is not just a short novel. No, it is a form that concentrates, that focuses on a unique single effect. It is a prose narrative, سردية نثرية, in which the totality of effect is the objective. التأثير في كليته هو الهدف. التأثير في كليته. The totality of effect is the objective, is the goal, the aim. The short story could be concerned with a scene, an episode, an experience, an action. It could focus also on a certain character or characters, the events of one day, a meeting, a conversation, or even a fantasy or a dream. So the short story is concerned usually with a unique or a single effect, okay? And the totality of effect, all the elements of the story are the aim. But that was with Edgar Allan Poe. The specific, the decisive qualities or characteristics that ensured, that gave independence for the short story, منحتها استقلالية, in the 20th century, were established first by Bates in a very famous book that is called The Short Story, then by David Lodge, another writer, in his book, which is again very influential, and it's called, it's about the short story. Okay, these are names, people who helped clarify the genre of the short story and gave it its independence: Edgar Allan Poe, Bates, and Lodge. The main decisive quality or factor or characteristic was what? That action in the short story should be deterministic, حتمي. It should be determined by the nature of the character and the situation. So the situation, الموقف, the character, الشخصية, they both naturally lead to the action. ثلاثة ماشيين مع بعض. That was a main decisive factor. In other words, in order to do this, to have this decisive factor, that action is deterministic, the short story should have a beginning, middle, end. And this is the very famous division given by Aristotle. Of course, writers today in the 21st century ignored all that. There is only one thing that writers today stick to. يلتزموا به. What is it? The single character or event and the totality of effect. So this is the only thing that writers in the 21st century stick to. So that was a very brief introduction about the genre of the short story. Now we need to look at a short story, and you'll find it in your book. Let's first introduce the author, Sir Victor Sodden Pritchard, usually known as V.S. Pritchard. He was born 1900, died 1997. He is a novelist, critic, and short story writer. Well, actually, he's very much known for his short stories. And his short stories began to appear in magazines in the 1920s. This is the beginning of the 20th century. He was very much influenced by the Russian writer Anton Chekhov. Anton Chekhov. And he admired the works of Chekhov very much. In this story, which is called A Family Man, رجل عائلة, Pritchard keeps a perfect balance between description, الوصف, and narration, السرد. And there is a difference between the two, as you know. Description, you keep describing a character, an appearance, a place, a feeling. Narration is سرد, you are telling us what happened. This happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And there is also, in this short story, there is dialogue between the two women. And the dialogue, of course, highlights, clarifies the characters and the action. Now, A Family Man, this short story was first published in a collection entitled On the Edge of a Cliff, but later it was included in Collected Stories, which was published 1982. So we agreed on that Pritchard is very famous for his short stories. He was influenced by Chekhov. This short story shows a perfect balance between description and narration, and there is also dialogue that helps clarify characters and the action. Let me give you a quick summary of this story. What is it about? And of course, you have to read the story because the story is about 12 pages. And this is a summary, as you can see in a few lines. So in the story, there is a main character, and her name is Bernice. She's waiting for her lover, William, to call her, as he said. She was even expecting a visit from him. Now, we understand from the very beginning that William Cork, this is his name, is a married man. Now, while Bernice is waiting for William, the doorbell rings, and of course, she thinks that this is William, and she opened the door. Instead of William, she found a woman. This woman is William's wife. She entered, she started accusing Bernice of having an affair with her husband. And Bernice felt so angry. At the beginning, we will see Bernice shaking, ترتجف, confused, مرتبكة, cannot understand what really happened. And of course, she keeps denying, تنكر. Then the wife says that she received a love letter to William from Bernice. And this is how she knew about the affair. But Bernice begins to defend herself honestly, because Bernice never wrote a letter to any man. And here the twist begins. تحول في القصة كلها. Because the wife shows Bernice the letter, and Bernice discovers that William is having an affair with another woman. But she did not tell the wife. And the wife leaves and apologizes to Bernice and all that. Now, in the end, Bernice gets mad at people who are married because she believes they lie to each other too much. And we need to remember this because actually Bernice also lied a lot. So this is a summary of the story, and I must say it's a very interesting story and very well written. Now, this is a very traditional story, right? A married man who is having an affair, and then his wife discovers. This sounds very traditional, even sounds very Arabic, all right? However, the way it is written is what shows the talent of the author, what he really cares about. We follow the development of the characters. What are the themes in this short story? We can say it's about exposing the illusions, كشف الأوهام, or received ideas, أفكار مسبقة, by which characters live or protect their dignity. In other words, we can say that the theme is disillusionment. This is a new word that I want you please to learn. Disillusionment. التخلص من الأوهام. And this is what happened to Bernice after her meeting with William's wife. She becomes disillusioned. And this happened gradually, not suddenly, gradually. So this is actually what the story is about, the disillusionment of Bernice. What about the structure of the story? Structure means البناء, بناء القصة. Any work has a structure. So for example, we said usually Shakespeare wrote his plays into 5 acts. This is the structure, okay? So what about the structure of this story? Now, this short story is regarded as classical in structure. What do we mean by classical? There is a beginning. The doorbell rings, and we know that Bernice is expecting William. We are introduced to a new character, which is, and this is William's wife. The relation between the two women is the core, the center of the story, the relation between the two women. Then comes the end, when Bernice is completely disillusioned and her life continues. So there is a beginning, middle, end. That's why we call this a classical structure, according to Aristotle. Where does the action take place? Now, this is a very strange question, and it looks like impossible. What do you mean by this? أين يقع الحدث? What do we mean by this? Let's see. Now, these are two short passages from the story. The one in blue is from the beginning of the story. The one in green is from the end of the story. So let's read. When that woman told her, I am the wife of William, and I know you are having an affair with him, what happened to Bernice? Bernice's heart stopped. Her wrist went weak, and her hand dropped on the door handle, and a spurt of icy air shot up her body to her face and then turned to boiling heat as it shot back again, as if, she's electrified, كأنها كهربت. Her head, Bernice's head, suddenly filled with chattering voices saying, oh God, how frightful. William, you did not tell her. Now, what are you going to do? Now, where is all this taking place? It's inside Bernice's mind. All this is on her mind. Let's look what happened after a long conversation between Bernice and the wife. When Bernice started lying, and Bernice herself discovered that William is having an affair with another woman that is called Rosie. How awful married people are, she thought. So public, sprawling over everyone and everything, always lying to themselves and forcing you to lie to them. She got up and looked bitterly at the empty chair under the tree at first, and then she laughed at it and went off to have a bath so as to wash all those lies off her truthful body. So at the beginning, she is shaking, her heart almost stopped. At the end, this is how she perceives the whole situation. She decided just to forget all about it, to take a bath, to clean her truthful body from all the lies she has told the wife. And she even accuses married people of lying, كذب. So back to the question, where does the action take place? The whole action takes place on Bernice's mind. So the action is psychological, not physical. All the story we read about Bernice's thoughts, opinions, ideas, and feelings. So the action takes place on Bernice's mind. Let's speak about some narrative techniques. Now, you know the word technique. Technique, we even use it in Arabic. When we say narrative techniques, what do we mean? تقنيات سردية. Yes, because there must be some techniques. There must be some techniques. If, for example, the soliloquy was a literary device, literary technique used in drama, then the short story or a novel should have techniques as well. There are many techniques, but I want to focus on two. The first one is the method of narration. أسلوب السرد. أسلوب السرد. Method of narration. In this short story, we call it third person narration. What do we mean by this? Writing in third person is writing from the third person point of view. شخص مش موجود خالص في العمل. An outsider looking in. And the pronouns used would be he, she, it, they. Like, for example, look at this passage again, the one in green. How awful married people are, she thought. So somebody here is narrating this to us, is telling us about the mind of Bernice. This is what we call third person narration. Third person narration differs from the first person. Sometimes you get works of fiction that are narrated in I. The character himself or herself is narrating, speaking. And there is also second person narration when the narration uses you. So the narration speaks to the reader. In all cases, the third person narration, the type used in this short story, enables the narrator, الراوي, to be all-knowing. الراوي ده من حقه يبقى عارف كل حاجة. الراوي العليم, this is what we call him. الراوي العليم means omniscient narrator. So this is the method of narration used in this short story. And it's very common. You'll find it in many short stories and novels. So this is one of the narrative techniques we need to learn, method of narration. There is another technique, and it has a name. It is called setting. Setting means the time and place within a narrative. So what is the time and place in this short story? Time is sometime during the day. Place is Bernice's house. Of course, the setting is always the backdrop, the background of the story. And it also gives the story its own mood. And usually we call the setting the story world. This is the story world. So the story world here is Bernice's house. She works in jewelry. So her room is full of colors, jewels, stones. Her dress when you read the story, you will notice the mood. You know, it's the mood of an artist. This is the story world. And then comes in the wife, who turns out to be huge, ضخمة, to the extent that Bernice describes her as giant, عملاقة. And this is when Bernice started to become disillusioned. So, method of narration and setting. Of course, there are other narrative techniques, but this would be enough for this short story. Then comes the part that you find difficulty in. What is the meaning of irony? And things become more difficult when I tell you it's not sarcasm. Irony is not السخرية. Irony is المفارقة. So you ask me, what is المفارقة? Let's read this passage and try to understand. At the end, you know, of the talk between Bernice and the wife just discovered that she's accusing the wrong person, and she apologized to Bernice. This is what happened. But now, the real Florence, the name of the wife is Florence, sat rummaging in her bag before her, searching for something in her bag. Thus, balloon-like giant. The wife is huge. First, babyish. When Bernice opened the door, the wife was acting in a babyish, sweet manner, and then shouting accusations. The dreamt of Florence vanished. Because one time, Bernice asked William, is Florence beautiful? So he said, yes, she's very beautiful. Then Bernice met the wife, and she's describing her as a balloon-like giant. This real Florence seemed unreal and incredible. And William himself changed. How he changed on Bernice's mind. His good looks began to look commonplace and shady. Commonplace means ordinary, عادي. His seriousness became furtive, his praise of her, of Bernice, calculating. He was shorter than his wife. His face now looked hangdog, and she saw him dragging his feet بيجر أقدامه as obediently he followed her. بيتبع زوجته بشكل في طاعة. Where did Bernice see that? Where did she feel that? On her mind. It all happened on her mind. She, this is Bernice, resented, which means disliked, that this woman had made her tell a lie. Of course, she lied to the wife. Strangely intoxicating, though it was to do so, and had made her feel as ugly as his wife was. Bernice herself felt ugly. For she must be. For here means because Bernice must be. If Florence was what he called beautiful, then Bernice is ugly. And not only ugly, but pathetic. Bernice this is how she feels, pathetic, بائسة, and without dignity وبدون كرامة. All this happened on Bernice's mind. This is her moment of disillusionment. So this is the irony, that she believed the wife was very beautiful, and therefore she believed herself to be beautiful. She believed that William was very handsome. He was the family man. She admired him very much. She looked up at him as a serious intellectual person. But now she discovered that he is not any of these. Now, this is the irony. This is al-mufarqa. What started as something great ended in a very unexpected way. This is what we mean by irony. However, irony has also several meanings. See the definition from Merriam-Webster dictionary. And it's online, by the way, this dictionary. So we have two meanings, and they are very close to each other. The first one, and between brackets, it says non-count, so you cannot use it in the plural form. Irony means the use of words that mean the opposite of what you really think, especially in order to be funny, like ازيك كويس جدا جدا جدا, while you are in a miserable state. Okay, that could be one meaning. Second meaning, look at the example. A writer known for her clever use of irony. This is an example how to use irony in this meaning. Or, what a beautiful view, he said, his voice dripping with irony. طب ليه irony? What is بقى the view? He was looking out the window at the alley. Alley اللي هو الحارة. Or, she described her vacation with heavy irony as it was an educational experience. You know, when you go on vacation and you keep visiting museums and museums and museums. خبرة تعليمية. Okay. This is one meaning of irony. Now, the second meaning is what I care about. A situation that is strange or funny because things happen in a way that seems to be the opposite of what you expected. And this is what happened in the story. The situation is very strange because what started as a romantic affair, and Bernice was even expecting William, the wife instead came and Bernice is totally disillusioned. So things are ending in a very unexpected way. Look at examples that will clarify to you the meaning of al-mufarqa. It was a tragic irony that he made himself sick. How? By worrying so much about his health. So a person is worrying so much about his health, but this person fell sick. دي مفارقة. Or the bitter irony is that in trying to forget her, he thought of her even more. You try to forget a person, so you find yourself thinking of this person more and more. Again, this is irony. This is mufarqa. You can say, you can describe a situation by saying, that's just one of life's little ironies. Okay. As you can see, in this sense, we can use it as a countable noun. We can add the S, like the last example. That's just one of life's little ironies. You can use it in another way, non-countable. The irony of the situation was apparent, was clear to everyone. Or you can describe a person as having a strong sense of irony. Now, what comes up below number 2 is the irony we are speaking about, al-mufarqa, that things end in a totally unexpected way. That was an example of a short story. It's called A Family Man by V.S. Pritchett. And I would like you very much, I urge you actually, to read the story in the book. And if you don't have it available, please tell me. I'll provide you with the story. And next time, and it's going to be our last class, we're going to speak a little bit about the exam, how the exam will look like. Thank you very much.